Saudi forces. The Yemen-based Houthis say they were targeting the Al Yamama Royal Palace, which is west of the capital, Riyadh. A large group of Saudi leaders were meeting there at the time, including King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
And I think the Houthis wanted to make a statement that they're still up and running and that they're still fighting, despite the fact that, in recent days and weeks there have been allegations that the Houthis are weakened by the split with Ali Abdullah Saleh, and that they possibly would not be able to shoot missiles further into Saudi territory, but they proved otherwise.
The missile attack happened just hours before Saudi Arabia was due to announce its annual budget. As well as members of the royal family, senior ministers were also expected to attend. A social media post from a government agency confirmed a missile had been intercepted, but that no casualties were reported. The Saudi-led coalition, which has been conducting airstrikes against Houthi fighters in Yemen for nearly 3 years, retaliated with more strikes in the southern part of the capital, Sana'a. Speaking on the group's TV channel, Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said the missile attacks marks 1,000 days since the start of the war in Yemen.
Today, a Burkan 2 missile was launched, targeting Al Yamama Palace in the heart of Riyadh city of Saudi Arabia. This is our answer to them and the whole world. The more crimes you perpetrate, the more tyrannical you are. You will meet nothing but more missiles.
This isn't the first Houthi missile attack on Saudi Arabia. In November, the international airport in Riyadh was narrowly missed in a strike. The Saudi government has accused regional rival Iran of smuggling missiles and technology to the Houthis, an allegation Tehran denies. The war in Yemen has created what the UN describes as the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Since the start of the conflict, at least 10,000 civilians have been killed and millions are on the brink of famine. And as the fighting continues, many fear the situation on the ground could get worse. Imtiaz Taib, Aljazeera.
Meanwhile, the Saudi-led military coalition fighting in Yemen has been accused of killing at least 136 civilians and non-combatants in just 10 days. The United Nations says they were killed by Saudi airstrikes between December the 6th and December 16th. These are the incidents the UN was able to verify, so the number of civilians killed could be higher. One attack involved 7 airstrikes on a prison in Sana'a last week, where 45 detainees were killed. And the UN says Yemen is facing the world's worst humanitarian crisis and is calling for the Saudi blockade on the country to be lifted.
Yemen is the largest food insecurity crisis in the world, and our recent humanitarian needs overview identified almost 18 million people who are in need of support food-wise. The prognosis is not good. If the blockade is not fully completely lifted and the interference in our work is not reduced or taken away, then the results in pushing back on cholera and pushing back on famine over the last 6 months will be lost.
Iran has condemned the US after it accused Tehran of supplying the missile fired into Saudi Arabia from Yemen last month. The government summoned the Swiss ambassador, who represents US interests in Iran, to pass on the message. It called the allegation, which was made by the US ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, both irresponsible and provocative. Iran is on the agenda at the UN in an hour's time. Mike Hanna joins us live from New York. So, Mike, let's start, though, with that missile fired at Saudi Arabia. What's the reaction been there?
Yes, indeed. Let me just take us back a bit. The meeting that will be taking place in about an hour's time is a regular 6-monthly meeting at which there will be a report back on Resolution 2231, which is the one that endorses a joint comprehensive plan of action which determines the lessening of sanctions on Iran in exchange for it ending or suspending its nuclear activities. Now, to get back to those alleged rocket attacks or alleged Iranian involvement in the building of those particular missiles, that was a complaint made by Saudi saying that they found debris on at least 2 occasions in July and last month, which indicated the missiles had been manufactured in Iran. Now, the meeting is likely to be briefed on a report by the Secretary General, which did look at this particular issue, saying that the Secretariat has already examined the debris of these missiles. No report as yet. He's recommended that a panel of Yemen experts be established to brief the Security Council on the findings of the Secretariat in investigating these missiles. Now, importantly as well, in his report that will be discussed at this meeting, the Secretary General says very clearly that since January, there has been no indication of any form of Iran breaking its sanctions or, and this is an important point, no evidence of any transfer of small arms weapons or of missile technology. So there is a certification in a way from the Secretary General that there was certainly no transfer of missiles or missile technology or missile parts from January this year.
So what are we due to hear about Iran in the next hour?
Well, what we're likely to hear is a briefing from the Undersecretary, Jeffrey Feltman, on the implementation of that Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. He'll brief the Council also on the Secretary General's report, which was released earlier this month. We'll also hear from the EU representative. The EU is the coordinator of that the Iran Sanctions Committee. He'll be briefing the Council on what the progress has been in the past 6 months. Up for discussion too, of course, will be the decision by President Trump to not certify this plan of action, which created some uncertainty about the body's future. However, it's likely to be heard from the briefing that the whole program will continue unaffected by President Trump's refusal to certify.
Mike Hanna, thank you very much indeed.